It's 8 o'clock on Monday night on the horn. That must be Thursday night on the horn. That must mean this is Insinserious. We got a great show for you today. We'll be talking a whole lot of NBA. Of course, we will get into a little NFL news, top shelf, bottom shelf, Insinserious news, and a whole lot more. But let's start off the show this like we do every week by asking you, Anthony, what is the best thing you saw this week?
The finals. I mean, there really wasn't much else going on.
We are getting to that part of the year, aren't we?
Yeah, it's getting sad times. But yeah, I mean, it was a great game. Game 2. Game 1 was a disaster, but Game 2 looked really good. Game 3, whatever. They're at least making it enjoyable. It's not just a complete blowout. It's not. They're putting up a fight. Even like last night, they, at least kind of scared or put a little bit of fear into Denver at the very end. But, it is what it is.
You know what? It's not a bad series. Let's get right into it. Let's get into the NBA and the NBA Finals. Denver gets the win. I've told you, I thought it was going to be a sweep outright. Denver is just a better team.
Yeah.
Miami, though, they have made it. This entire playoffs has basically been them disproving any stat right or any logic or reason right.
Yeah.
They just continuously find a way to win. So you could believe that they win a game, and they did win a game, and it was basically Michael Malone did not make good in-game adjustments, and he thought he could pull out a win still without having to make any major changes, just kind of stick to what they wanted to do. Michael Porter Jr. and KCP had bad games, and they just really didn't try and fix it up. They still had a three-pointer to tie it at the end.
Right.
Then Game 3 gets to – you realize, and I had said this on Ball Don't Lie before the game, that basically Jamal Murray, they're going to try and force feed him. They got him 8. He had 8 of the first 10 points. They were just trying to force feed him the ball. And, it's, hey, man, let's get Jamal Murray going. Let's play outside in instead of inside out. Because once we're playing inside out, it's a lot easier to play passing lanes when you're all inside the three-point line. Once everybody's outside the three-point line, you can do that. And Jokic is just so good that he's able to – you don't have bigs very often that you can go, oh, we can put him on the perimeter, and they have to guard him because he's a really good three-point shooter.
Right.
And once he's out there, when they get up on him, he can handle the ball well enough to not just post up and back you down, get a 5-second violation or whatever. He can dribble in and then back and then face up again and not have you poke the ball out because you're such on your heels because you don't know what he's doing. And what I've realized in the series is he's a guy that you have to watch in slow-mo his highlights to really appreciate what he's doing, which you wouldn't expect from a guy it's not like, oh, he's so athletic, he's doing, but you just miss all the little movements. When you watch when he has the ball at the three-point line, you're like, there's 7 different things he does in this to get a little layup or a little push shot in there. He does 7 things. But in the moment of it, you're just like, oh, he's just kind of driving to the bucket, and it looks kind of awkward.
Always
but
clunky,
But when you watch it in slow-mo, you're like, oh, it's not clunky. He's intentionally doing this to throw the defender to be like, okay, I have to change my position because he's lowering his left shoulder now. Now his right elbow's – you have to watch where his body's making all these movements to how you have to defend a guy, especially when he's 7 foot tall and has the weight that he has that he can push you around. It's just amazing to watch him play. And then when Jamal Murray plays as well as he does, where they have the historic game where it's the first time ever that 2 players – have 30-point triple-doubles.
That's insane.
And not in the finals, not in the playoffs.
Just ever.
And Jokic now has his third 30-20-10 game, the first ever in the finals, and the third of all time in NBA the third of his, 5th all time in NBA history. So he has more than the rest of the NBA history combined. And
ridiculous.
It's just that part, and when you watch him, the craziest part is watching him play and realizing that barring injury, which we don't want to see, what is going to happen to him to slow him down? It's not like Kevin Garnett where you're like, oh, he's going to change his game up because he's so athletic. He's not athletic.
Yeah, he's not.
It's not like he's not going to jump and it's not like he's not going to jump. It's not like he's going to slow down.
Yeah.
Oh, man, but now that elusive speed that he has is gone. So how much longer can he keep up? And not at this pace, because this is historic, next level, insane pace. But at a pace that is still as good of a player that there is.
Well, I mean, the NBA is going to evolve around him, and basically teams are going to start searching for the next big man, and or you're going to see a lot of really bad big men get contracts just to
because and that's like we saw that with Shaq, right?
Yeah.
It was basically you had to have like 2 burner big guys.
Yes.
I don't think you need 2, but I think you still need. I think you're going to need 1 burner big guy to body him up so that if you do have a shot blocker, then go play out. And like a team that's interesting is like Oklahoma City, right? Oklahoma City is a good young team, but their center is probably going to be Chet Holmgren. But now you go, okay, what you want to do is play small ball and have Chet Holmgren as big, but not so you don't have a powerful big, but you have a faster lineup, and that's your big. And you play you can get but you play SGA and I can't remember his name right now, but the great player that's the great defender that plays for OKC. You got Josh Giddey, and then you put in a 3-point shooter out of their spot that you don't really need to be a big guy.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, but now you look at it and go, you may have to now move Holmgren to the 4 and kind of have a big, at least on the roster, that can play but can still run and I mean everybody wants a stretch 3 or a stretch 5. That's what everybody wants.
Sure. Yeah.
That's why Brook Lopez is in such demand right now. Like and that will tell you how much the game changes from time to time. People are like, "Oh man, it was the best in the 90s." Like it's still evolving and it will change, continue to change. But that stretch 5, Brook Lopez now, which he was not when he went to Milwaukee. But the fact it's like you can play good enough defense, good enough help defense. He's big enough to body up a big guy, and he can shoot a 3. It's all we need. We don't need you to be now. We don't want you to be the post-up guy. That was always what you wanted. So you wanted a big that could post, have great back to the basket and all that. Now you want a guy who can go out and shoot a 3 instead, which every big guy will tell you they'd rather do, or pretty much every big guy will. A 7-footer be like, oh yeah, I don't want to go inside where they just punch me in my liver for a 2 for half and cut you up. And I mean, like if you ever see a 7-footer's like body after a game and they'll like cuts and scratches on because people are just basically clawing at them the whole game and can get away with it. It's
so you bring up Brook Lopez. So let me ask you this: if Brook Lopez was on this Miami team, would this be a literal toss-up as far as who would win this championship?
No, because that's not like the problem is.
I'm literally saying like the same team, everything's like you take out who is it? It's not Plumlee. It's the other bad one guy.
Cody Zeller?
Cody Zeller.
No, because Cody Zeller is not who you'd be taking out. This is where you'd be taking out whoever's playing 4 for them. Which, I mean, they kind of play small ball.
Yeah, it's like Bam kind of plays the 4.
Because Bam plays 5. But it's Kevin Love, basically, that guy. But Kevin Love's a stretch 4. And that's that. So it's Kevin Love's doing similar things, which is why they put him in that lineup. Was because Kevin Love is that guy. He's just not as good of a defender, but he's a better rebounder and a better passer than Brook Lopez is.
Right.
So I think that you kind of already have that in your mind. The problem with this series is that your 2 best players are the same position as the 2 best players on Denver, and the 2 best players on Denver are both playing better than your guys. So it is relying completely on your role players shooting 3s lights out, which they've done a lot in this series. Spoelstra has given them the opportunity, has given them the confidence to shoot like that. The problem is you have games like last night because it's not sustainable when everyone is playing their hearts out. And we saw last night, too, the Browns on the bench, Bruce Brown and Christian Brown for Denver come in, and they just wanted it. They wanted it more, and I think that's where, during the regular season, you look at teams' records on the road and on home and kind of get a viewpoint of it. And I think there are certain things that when you get to the playoffs change to where when you look at Denver and you go, well, in the regular season, they were not the best road team. And you go, well, yeah, but they've also dealt with injuries. And a team that deals with injuries usually tries to deal with rest and everything else on the road because you want to give because you have an owner who wants to give the or governor in the NBA that gives the home crowd what they want,
right?
And then you give load management on the road. So those regular seasons may not be the same thing on the road. If you're in a road game and you're down by 10 with 3 minutes to go, you may pull out of that game. You may say, cool it, but at home you may try and finish it out and get the win. And for when the home team, when you say Miami's going home, so they'll have home court advantage, half of this roster, these are the biggest games they've ever played in their life.
Right.
And every single friend they have is calling them nonstop to try and get tickets, Hey, man, my girl needs one and my girl's friend needs, and they're calling them, and they're having to deal with telling people no and that. And they're just, you manage that well enough. But at the end of the day, when you're in your early 20s and you just had to tell all these people no, and you've got all these people, and you've got people in the crowd that are cheering, I'm going to be there. Hey, look for me, section 4, row 29, seat 3, I'll be there. And you're like, all right, I got to look in, all right, you're worried about all these different little things, and then you have to worry about, oh, man.
The game, maybe?
Exactly. And your fans, and every time you miss a shot, and you're in your head.
Yeah.
It's like when you do comedy and you write jokes in your house, you put applause breaks and laugh breaks in your head, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, when I say that on the stage, people are going to kill. And then when you get on stage to do comedy, you tell the joke, and you get a laugh, but it's not the laugh you wanted. And that's when you shoot a 3 and you bank it off, you break it off the rim. And in your head, this goes in, and the crowd goes crazy. And then you shoot that first one, and the whole thing you put through your head of how I'm going to win this game tonight, and it breaks off. And you just have to re-gauge that. But you can do that a lot easier in the regular season because you're just playing basketball.
Right.
At a certain point, the game becomes bigger, and a guy like Jimmy Butler needs to step up more than he is right now to be that guy. We saw Jeff Green in the mic'd up, that Jeff Green was sitting around being the vocal leader that he needed to be. And Jimmy Butler's doing that to an aspect, but Jimmy Butler needs to be dominant because that's what he brings more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that he hasn't stepped up. I know that maybe he's hoping that he can get his role players going and then he can, do it in the next game, the following games, but you can't just I think he should be foot on the pedal a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, you can't if you're not putting up the points, you only have 94 points in that game, and you're not going to hold Denver to under 100. That's just not realistic to hold the best offense in the NBA this year under 100 points. And 2 games here you fail to reach 100 points.
Right.
So you're basically offensively not giving yourself a chance to win this game. No matter if the defense, I think 109 is a little high for you anyway, but you're not giving yourself a chance to win at this point. And, I mean, in reality, Kevin Love shoots okay at 2 for 5, but only takes threes, doesn't go inside the line. Jimmy Butler shoots 1 for 4 for 3. Gabe Vince is 1 for 6. Max Strus is 1 for 4. Caleb Martin's 2 for 5. Kyle Lowry's 1 for 4.
That's rough.
Duncan Robinson's your best shooter at 3 for 6. And a couple of hits were, I think he were up 2 at the end of the game. So he actually shot decently in his minutes, but he can't play as much because defensively he's giving up so much right now that, he only plays 14 minutes in that game. But on the flip side, I knew what the adjustment was from game 2 to game 3. I knew what the adjustment was for Denver, right? And you're able to look at it and go, okay, the adjustment is you play outside and you play this. It changes up the passing lanes. It changes up. They're not able to do this one way that they were kind of able to keep Jokic from being a passer, where he had 4 assists in that game and 5 turnovers. They were able to stop that. I don't know how, if you're Miami, other than hit threes. And I get you're going to set more screens. You're going to try and get guys more open. But
not everybody's going to shoot that bad, though.
They're not. But they're also, you need 3 of those guys to shoot better, not 1.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't 105 to 109. It was 94. And I think that's where it comes to, you need to find, normally what you would do to try and get a 3-point shooter going, you try and get him to drive the bucket, get a foul, hit some free throws, see the ball go in a couple times, get easier shots.
Yeah.
This is not what a lot of these guys do. If we saw what Christian Brown did for Denver, Christian Brown, I think he shot 1 3, but he would line up at the 3-point line, pump fake, and all his buckets were in the paint.
Yeah.
All his buckets were driving the basket because he knew, if I miss shots, I'm getting pulled. So I got to take the highest percentage shots I can take. And the highest percentage shots I can take is this. And I know the bucket's going to be open because Jokic is at the 3-point line. So they have to guard him.
Right.
Which means Bam Adebayo is not a shot blocker anymore because he has to be out there. And all of our guys are on the 3-point line. So where's Bam going to be? And I know they want to play zone, but play zone against Jamal Murray and Jokic on the perimeter and see how fast this backfires on you.
Yeah, right.
So
it worked for a little bit in game 2.
It did, but in game 2, they were playing with Jokic inside.
Right.
And they basically stopped playing Jokic inside, and he's good enough to be able to do that and still be a 30, 20, 10 guy. So when you go, hey, man, we just played their center and we know how to beat them, and they go, I'll play like a guard. And they go, well, crap. Yeah. They have a 7-foot guard now who can post up anybody we have. So we can't switch on him either. Because if you switch onto him, they set a screen, you switch onto Jokic, he's just going to back you down.
Right.
And the minute you try and switch back and Bam comes over, pass out, 3-point shot.
So I have 3 questions for you. One, is it – so it sounds like you have pretty much – and I think you said this last night. It's basically a gentleman's sweep.
I think it's going to be a gentleman's sweep, yeah.
I feel like I can see Miami pulling one more.
I can believe it because if they shoot,
they're gonna have to shoot.
If they shoot that way and they shoot 50% three, they can win another game. If Denver falls off, Michael Malone doesn't get them pumped up for Game 4 or Game 5, then easily Miami can come back and steal one. I agree 100% because they've done it all postseason.
Yeah, right. And then secondly, is this the structure of a dynasty? Do you see this team becoming a dynasty, or is that just a thing of the past now?
I think they are, but I don't know if they're an old school dynasty because basically they have to keep 2 guys. And when you look at this roster, a lot of these guys are somewhat replaceable. And you go, Michael Porter Jr. is great during the regular season, but he sucked in this finals and they're still winning. Yeah. And KCP's good, but there's other guys like KCP.
For sure.
I mean, Aaron Gordon's one of the hard ones because you get a defensive stopper, but you trained him. You found that guy in Orlando, and no one wanted him, and you trained him how to do it. So I think it's realistically a dynasty. I don't think it's a dynasty of like, oh, man, they're unbeatable for years. But I think it's a dynasty of they're going to be a problem for several years to come because they have to keep 2 guys on this roster, and that's it. And everything else can kind of rotate. Yeah. And especially the new CBA where teams are not able to – you're not going to have that opposing dynasty as easily now. I think it means that Denver can definitely just pay 2 guys and be pretty happy.
Right on. And then on the flip side, with Miami, what do they need? So there's no way that they do repeat this again with the same team. So what's their biggest thing that they need to do in the offseason? Or is there anything that they really can do in the offseason to repeat this? Or was this just kind of like a lucky win? Because, I mean, there were 8 undrafted.
There's a number of things. There's a number of things they can do. One of them I'll get into in just a little bit. But I think I think there are a number of other ways, but you're going to have to try and load in at least one other player. Let's put it that way. You're going to have to try and load in at least one other player in there. But, I mean, you just kind of, on this offseason, too, got to figure out the guys you want. Remember, Tyler Hero's not even playing yet. By the way, he's not going to play in Game 4. They've already ruled him out for Game 4. They do have another scorer. So when we talk about them only put up 94 points and not having there, now he's not the defensive threat.
Right.
But if we're saying they can't score, their second leading scorer has been out this entire series. Yeah. So that is another piece that we have to add in, that if they can keep him around, I think it's just a question of they have to figure out who they're going to keep out of the Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, all of those guys they're good players, but when money comes up, how much money are they going to get? We're going to have to see how the new CBA plays out of how much money guys are willing to give, because the contract structure of how it used to be, I don't think is what it's going to be anymore. I think, at least for a while, people are going to very much err on the side of caution. Yeah. And we'll get in our next thing, which is Chris Paul, which I feel this is part of that, which is you never want to ditch an asset. Chris Paul is scheduled to be released. This feels like a Matt Ishbia leak.
Yeah.
It feels like an owner, like the GM went to the owner and said, hey, well, this is what we're thinking about. And Matt Ishbia was like, cool, cut him. And then leaked out they were going to cut him. And then the GM was like, that's not how this works. Yeah. Let's try and get some value back. I can still try and get value back. I know you've given me permission to cut him, but that didn't mean I was going to do it today.
You don't think they sign and trade him?
He's not a free agent.
But isn't that the whole point of cutting him then, like a re-sign?
So they may cut him and re-sign him for less.
Right. That's what
because they just don't want to pay. They don't want his whole salary because it's all about the luxury tax.
And because you can't trade that. His
I don't think they sign and trade him. I don't think they sign and trade him. I think if they trade him, then some other. But that's the thing. I don't think they trade him. Basically, they want to look into that. I think that they either sign and keep him, or waive him and then re-sign him. Mm-hmm. I think they may do that. Mm-hmm. But that's if Chris Paul wants to do it. But I don't see anybody who wants Chris Paul with that contract.
Right.
And I think there's teams that could use him, not for $40 million.
No.
And especially when we're talking about, all right, we'll have to give up any. Now, you could say in Miami, if all you have to give up is Duncan Robinson and like one other player to make salaries work, and you're basically giving up a bad contract to get a bad contract, but it's Chris Paul, and you feel, oh, he's going to fit into our culture. This is a guy we could use. But that's not the guy I would go for if I was Miami, because it's another guy who's just injured too much now.
Right.
He's on the back end, and you don't know what you're getting. And you don't know what you're getting this year. You don't know what you're getting next year. You don't know what you're getting, because at a certain point, the bottom can completely fall out. He is still a great player, a great mentor for young players. But I'm not sure. I don't like what the Suns are doing.
Why?
Because I just feel like they're doing everything very knee-jerk reaction of like, we're just going to – and like it doesn't seem like they have any plan for like 2 years down the line. It feels like if Phoenix doesn't win a title next year, then they have failed entirely, and this is going to be a dumpster fire for the next 5 to 10 years, because they're just going to give away all their draft picks to try and win this year. And when it doesn't happen, they're going to give away everything else they can to try and win the next year. And then when these players and Devin Booker realizes, hey, man, there's nobody on this team. We have no assets. We have no picks to trade. We have nothing. And our owner's an idiot who did it all. Why do I want to be? Katie's retired, or Katie's left. So now it's just me and DeAndre Ayton. Why? And they didn't hire the coach I wanted, because he wanted the assistant to get hired. And that was the rumor. And Bill Simmons got in trouble because he said they were going to hire the assistant, and they did not.
Why did he get in trouble for that?
Oh, because Bill Simmons kept saying, like, reporting it as this is who they're going to hire.
Oh, okay.
And then they went with Frank Vogel, which
is a great pickup.
I think Frank Vogel's a good hire.
Yes.
I think if you were pissing off all your team really quickly, the worst hire is to bring in a guy who's going to be like, now play defense, Devin Booker. Like, I just don't think Devin Booker's going to be there in 3 years. Let's put it that way. I think this team is going to crumble very quickly, and Devin Booker's going to be like, peace out, Phoenix. Matt Ishbia, you suck as an owner. Because you went so hard in that you never had any contingency. And maybe it'll work, but it did not work at all what he did this year.
Right.
And then you fire Monty Williams for no reason.
Right.
Now, good on Monty Williams, because he just made bank to go to Detroit. But, I mean, I don't like what they're doing. Where do you think Chris Paul ends up?
So there's a few places. And it's all on the basis of him being waived and then signed for lesser in trade. So the Lakers is obviously my dream. But then you've got if for whatever reason Kyrie leaves Dallas, he could replace Kyrie for less. My favorite idea is obviously as long as there's less money, because they have all these picks to just kind of throw a few little whatever in a piece.
Yeah.
But the Spurs, I think it would be a great addition, because I think Chris Paul is at that age where he has no desire to be just he wants to be a mentor, and he could be a great mentor with him and Pop and Duncan for Victor. I think that would be a great
and I think that there is a piece of that. I think that was way more likely when it was a trade. It was like the Spurs basically eat his contract for a year, and they get some picks out of Phoenix for it or something. Like, you give a first and Chris Paul to the Spurs, they take his contract, and then he helps out. But I don't think he goes there for the amount of money they would be willing to pay him off a signing. I think they'd rather keep their young guys. But this is the thing with Chris Paul. So many good teams have guys that need the ball in their hands. And Chris Paul doesn't necessarily play well with that. So that limits to where he could go.
Yeah.
But I think he stays in Phoenix just because he sees the writing on the wall. And I think it's also, you got to remember, this guy who was the head of a player association for many years, he can't really do that veteran minimum and sign with the Lakers. He can't do that veteran minimum and go to Miami or sign that veteran minimum deal, because it's bad for players to do that. So he has to somewhat toe the player line in there and ask for it. Mid-level exception is plenty for him. I think that everyone go, yeah, it's a fair rate. Like, you're at the end of your career. We're not going to get mad at you for taking $11 million a year. We're not saying you got to go ask for 25, but you can't go in for $1 million or $2 million, whatever the veteran minimum is. They're not going to do that. I do want to hit real quick before we go to break. There's a couple draft storylines. We'll hit them more next week too. So I'm just going to hit this first one to put in your mind and get everybody thinking about it. the biggest storyline of the draft right now. And it may come up before the draft. Something may happen if the finals end this weekend, by Monday, I mean. Then this storyline could come before we're on the air next week. The number 3 pick is Portland's.
Right.
Damian Lillard has basically insinuated that he does not want to play with guys that are going to take several years to be ready.
Right.
Rookies take a few years. Even the Spurs getting Wembanyama, but they're not going to win the title in the 1 year.
Right.
So you understand that. There is very intriguing players. Most people are saying right now they expect Brandon Miller to go number 2. So Scoot Henderson becomes available at 3. We know Scoot Henderson has potential to be a top scorer, top player in the league. If you are Portland, do you say, all right, you know what? It's just we don't have the resources to try and make that one big push for Dame. We know he's been loyal. We've been everything else. Let's find him another home, try and add more assets, and expedite our rebuild and do a quicker rebuild and build around this number 3 pick. Because remember, some recent number 3 picks include Luka Doncic is a number 3 pick. He's rebuilt the Dallas Mavericks around him.
Sure.
If you're able to get that, you're not going to probably get it again. You may not get it again. We've seen Houston tank, and they got number 4. So the luck may not be on your side next time.
Yeah.
So you say, take that. We know we'll probably have a decent pick again next year. Plus, we'll have 2 or 3 other picks for us. Or you say, we trade the number 3 pick, and we go all in on Dame, and we give the number 3 pick to somebody else who's got a star player. Again, we get a piece, and we can trade off our assets, and we can go big in. That is the storyline that's the craziest to watch right now, because who knows what Portland's going to do. And I think really it's something that probably won't happen until the draft.
Right.
Because it depends on if Scoot Henderson's at 3. Because I don't think Brandon Miller is the player that you necessarily trade Dame for. I think Scoot Henderson is. And not because Brandon Miller's not a better player, but I don't know if Brandon Miller is I don't know if he's shown that he is the guy that will take the keys and run your franchise. And Scoot Henderson looks like a guy that goes, for good or bad, he'll take 40 shots a game.
Yeah.
Like, he will be that guy for us. And even in the years where we're struggling a little bit, he will be the guy. We can just give him the ball and we'll figure it out. And Brandon Miller is going to be, hey, if we put him on the right team, this guy could be the second best player on the team, maybe the best player if we get lucky. But we don't know. But the thing is, we're going to Charlotte, and Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball don't seem like they play well together. So that's why Brandon Miller will probably go there. I'm super curious to see what happens. I think there's a lot of entertaining places for Dame Lillard to go, and that's when I said, Miami, you want to go all in, and you want to offer every single role player you have for Damian Lillard. And you're going to have to offer every one of them because Portland probably doesn't want any of them.
No. Well,
because they go, Max Strus, yeah, he's okay.
Caleb Martin?
But all these guys, we're going to have to re-sign them before any of them. We're going to pay all of them money before we're winning anything.
Yeah.
So why do we want any of these guys to be average for the next couple of years? We want draft picks. And are you going to give us enough draft picks far enough down the line that's post-Damian Lillard's career, and we think you were going to be bad then? Pat Riley will hopefully be retired, so you guys will suck then, and we can just go we can have good draft picks. That's one thing for Miami. We know Dame would love to play there. I don't know if they have the ammunition. The thing to remember, DeJounte Murray got traded from the Spurs for 3 first-round picks and a pick swap. That was for DeJounte Murray. So when you just say picks, I don't think it's enough to get Dame Lillard.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a reset though. Those draft picks were wild. How many draft picks these players?
No, I get that, but I'm saying if we're saying you're getting 3 for DeJounte Murray, because first round draft picks don't matter if they're past 15.
Sure,
they're worthless past 15. I mean, not worthless, but they're like if you said, hey, here's 3 top 20 picks. Christian Brown, who had a good game in the finals, that's what he's done. That's the 21st pick in the draft. So if you get 3 Christian Browns for DeJounte Murray, you'd be like, cool.
Yeah.
We didn't get a star in there. You're getting 3 lottery tickets, though. So you get 3 lottery tickets that maybe you'll get a star. I don't think that Miami is going to take 3 lottery tickets, 4 lottery tickets for Dame Lillard. I think they want real money, which is a good player, and the lottery tickets.
I just don't think – I think it's a bad decision if Portland tries to keep Dame and trades that. They don't have enough already. Even
agree.
If you got a great player – that's still not enough what you need to be.
We're going to take a break. I'm going to tell you the team that I kind of want to see happen,
All right.
but just because I like to see the world burn, because I wouldn't like it in one way, but it would be so interesting to watch in a different way.
Okay.
We'll do that when we come back. Get to some NFL top shelf, bottom shelf, and a little bit later some Inserious news right here on Inserious on Warren 104.9, 119 AM 1260. Back on Insenserious here on the Horn. Reminders, the Specs text line is open. 512-337-3776. 512-337-3776. If you want to join the conversation, send us a text in on the Specs text line. Also, thanks for everybody watching us on YouTube. We appreciate you watching us on the YouTube as well. I did tease you before the break that I do have a place that I would like to see happen. I would love to see Houston to try and get into this. And I know it is a team that you go, it's not fully ready, but you have a really good coach in Ime Udoka. You have basically a ton of cap space. And you're able to offer up the number 4 pick in this draft, as well as some future picks. So you're able to go, here's a number 4. You now get number 3 and number 4 in this draft. You have future picks, plus we'll give you a young player too.
Yeah.
So you get some other guys. You prefer to leave Jalen Green and Jabari Smith and not have them 2 touch. But, there are some other guys like the Martin. You could maybe give him up in that trade. So there are some guys you could give up in that trade. If you really had to give up Şengün, you could probably try and sign another center. But there are some players you give up in that trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go re-sign James Harden. You sign James Harden back. And I know that's not what you want, but this is for Dame Lillard. He's going to need another guy on that team, right?
Okay.
And so now you have a lineup that is Dame Lillard, James Harden, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and you add a 5th player. And you have Ime Udoka as coach. I think that team is better than what Portland has now.
Yeah.
And so it's just an interesting trade. I think Dame Lillard is also the best rapper in the NBA. You go to H-Town.
Sure. I mean, I like it. I do actually like it. I hate James Harden, and the idea.
I know, and I get it's all silly, but we know that the rumor is James Harden may want to go back to Houston.
Right.
So it all plays into things that are like logically and realistically a thing that could happen. And I know that it is, well, if he doesn't want to wait, why would he go to Houston when he's already there? Because they've ditched all of their salary right now. So maybe they can go make a play for Brook Lopez too. And you go, we can bring in Brook Lopez as well to play our 5. And we can sign James Harden, we can bring in, and we can try and create something that try and win now and then build up Jabari Smith and Jalen Green. So in the intermediate period, when those guys leave, you re-sign them, you pay them, and now you're running on a new mission with those guys. I think if you're Houston, you should really try to see if you can do that, because number 4 pick, I think, would matter more to Portland, and you're going to be a team that's going to want to maybe get rid of that trade too.
Yeah.
So that's something that I look forward to. That I would like to see. I know no one's talking about that one. Everyone is looking at other teams that are more likely to do it. But I think if you're Houston, you should look into that a lot, because it would be a big coup to basically reset to get Ime Udoka and then James Harden and Dame Lillard in offseason, and just take a team that was milling and tanking for 3 years and be like, guys, we did it to you for years, but here we go. We're all gas, no brakes now, right?
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk a little NFL for a minute. Dalvin Cook, reports were that he is going to be released tomorrow.
Yeah.
He's been told he would be released. They were going to try and work out a trade today. If it didn't work out, I've not heard of anything as of showtime starting.
But again, it's the same thing. Why would anybody trade for him if they've already pretty much put it out there that they're going to release him?
No, and the only reason is if you're not Miami and you want him really bad, you may give up a 7th to try and just get him on your roster instead of someone else. If you're like, well, he's not coming. Like, he does not want to come here, so we will trade for him, and then we own his rights, and he has no choice. I think that would be the only way you would get a trade. I think he's not needed that bad by anybody who's going to go get him. There's teams that want him, but Miami has no reason to, because they know he wants to go there.
Yeah.
I was a big proponent of him to Dallas. I don't know if it's the right fit.
But why?
Because I feel like he is going to be another guy of what they kind of already have. I don't know if he's taken a lot. He can carry the ball more historically than Tony Pollard, but he's also not the best pass blocker. He's not a bad one, but he's not the best. He's not a guy that you're necessarily just going to run up the middle. He's a zone run guy. I think he's another kind of gimmicky guy you put in there, and it's not. If you're going to spend the money on a guy like that, I would rather you try and go get Derrick Henry than spend even more money to get Dalvin Cook that doesn't necessarily fix the major problem. If you got him for the right price, of course, always the right price, yes. But I think he's going to want more money to come there. I think the only reason you're getting him in Dallas is because you outbid. I don't think Jerry Jones outbids.
Right.
And so I'm not. It does not bother me as much that Dallas is not in all the headlines for him right now, because I think that we should probably try and aim for something else, and I think it's going to be probably during preseason or maybe early in the season that they see, okay, we see what's happening. Like, I think when they do scrimmages and Dak Prescott's getting more pressure than they want to get.
Yeah.
And plus, I think they're going to run a lot of multi-tight end packages too, to try and get some more pass blocking. But where do you think Dalvin Cook ends up?
I mean, I would love to see him, even though all that is sounds probably accurate. I would still like to see him with Dallas. I just need a body in there.
No, I know. There needs to be one more body.
If not there, my next place would be the Raiders. I mean, Josh Jacobs still hasn't signed anywhere, they might not have Josh Jacobs, so they should start planning for life without him. And Dalvin Cook could be serviceable to that. They're not going to have to pay as much and have, as decent. I mean, because they're kind of in an awkward situation anyways with their future.
Yeah, so. I do also kind of like them tanking this year. I'm not fully opposed to it. Now, if you're Josh McDaniels, I don't think you want to do that, because you're like, ooh, let's just add to my how many games would I have to win to get above 500 at this point?
Yeah.
But I mean, if I was Mark Davis, I'd be fine with tanking this year, firing Josh McDaniels, moving on, getting Caleb Williams, and building a new future. I'd be fine with all that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're there yet. So I don't know if you're gonna if you bring in Dalvin Cook, you can't have Josh Jacobs and Dalvin Cook and spend that much money on running backs and then just suck. Actively try to suck. I feel like it, but I like it. If Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, then it makes a lot more sense too. But we think it's Miami, right?
The way things are going, that is so many running backs.
It is, but you just get rid of one. That's the deal. A lot of these teams are going to get rid of a running back before the season starts.
Sure.
Because they're so cheap now. Why would you not stockpile them? Go to training camp, see what you have, and then when you're in preseason week 3, you go, you're unhappy. We'll let you go. Or you go, the injuries happen. Everyone's losing at least one running back a season.
No.
How deep are we going to be in week 5?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not deep at all now. Now we got 1.5 running backs.
Yeah. I mean, I do like that. It makes the most logical sense.
Frank Clark to the Broncos.
Great.
Is it a good move?
Yeah, it's a great move.
Broncos gonna. Also, Broncos in the Dalvin Cook sweepstakes.
I don't like that. Though.
But they are. I mean, Sean Payton's trying anything and everything. Is this Broncos team going to turn it around?
I mean, but here's the thing: they were so bad.
Yeah.
It's so hard for. It's so easy to say.
This way, are they going to at least be a team you want to turn on in week 12? Like
Sure.
in week 12, are they still realistically in the playoff hunt?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I'll say this. They'll have a winning season, whether that'll be just a one game above 500.
If you have a winning season, you're realistically in the playoff hunt in week 12.
Sure.
That's still with 6 weeks to go.
Sure. But, I mean, it's a Sean Payton coach team, so they're going to be entertaining. It's going to be a great game or a great team.
And real quick, Dallas Dak Prescott has said that they want to name their offense because Mike McCarthy's running this new offense, and it's not the West Coast offense. He's saying it's the Texas Coast offense. It's the dumbest name you've ever heard.
It's a problem.
Because also they're in Dallas. In Houston, like you're a little bit closer to a coast.
You're nowhere near a coast.
You're just nowhere near a coast. So it makes even less because you're like, you could have been like.
You could listen. You could be the Texas toast offense because you're just toasting people.
Because you're toast.
This is terrible.
Yeah, I don't like it. I feel like he should have workshopped that one a little bit more before he
I feel
said
like
that.
he did workshop that.
I don't feel like I think they said it in the room and they're all like, yeah. And then he said it on. They're like, dude, don't tell people. It's dumb. Let's go over to top shelf, bottom shelf. Every week, Anthony gives me stories that we not have time to get to in the rest of the show, and I will tell you if they're a grade A top shelf. Yes, that means that Dalvin Cook's going to the Texans. We're winning a Super Bowl. Bottom shelf. Nothing. I had nothing on that one. Bottom shelf. Dame Lillard ends up on the Miami Heat, and they trade nothing for him, and they're just a better team. I don't like that at all.
Okay.
It's just not a fun bottom. If you want to join the conversation, 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. And what's our first story?
All right, I got to do this one. Messi coming to MLS.
Huge. That's huge news.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that game is now an instant sellout every single arena, right? Every single place that he put, every road game is an instant sellout, correct?
Correct.
It's big for MLS. He turned down over $1 billion from the Saudis.
That's more of the story to me is the amount of money that he gave up.
Now, I get why you do that.
Why?
Because you're very – like the whole thing with the Saudis is they're trying to – you have to be a spokesman. There's probably a lot of caveats in there
stuff.
of like, hey, you got – and he's like, I can't do the interviews. First of all, I don't need the money. Like, I'm set for life. My kids are set for life. Now, I could have generational wealth if you give that.
Yeah.
But I'm also my generational wealth may come with price. That my kids and my kids' kids, depending on what you got to do in the next 10 years, maybe I turn out to be a real bad guy real soon.
Sure.
And, I don't know how much that I'm getting paid at what point before you do something else that people are not a fan of. So I think, and when you have to go and do these interviews, we saw Bryson DeChambeau do an interview that was terrible. Basically being like, everyone makes mistakes. She's talked about cutting up a reporter. And you were like, everybody makes mistakes. Who doesn't have some problems in your past? Come on, bro. So, Messi, like, I think there's that. And you're like, dude, I can go be a part of this. And he now is basically will be part of the deal is he will be able to buy into a team and be a part owner and be able to have growing wealth of a franchise. You know who owns the Miami team?
No.
David Beckham, the first big-name player to come to MLS.
Listen, he
is following that trend. He knows it'll be less work than he has to do overseas.
For sure.
All of these things, a great way to finish his career. And I think also he knows I'm the biggest name worldwide in sports, probably. One of the biggest names, Ronaldo and those guys. But now I've become a bigger name in America and make even more money.
It's a big deal for the MLS, for sure.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's one of those things. I don't care about soccer. I'd still kind of like to see him play.
For sure.
Just because it's like, oh man, it's Michael Jordan. Like if you have that chance to see that guy, I'm lucky enough that I've been able to watch a lot of basketball games. So I've seen Michael Jordan play, I've seen LeBron James play, I've seen all those guys. But you just kind of want to see and just go, I just want to watch them on the field, especially MLS where you feel like the talent level is going to be a little bit of like a bigger divide. And you just want to watch one guy play video games with everybody else, right?
How happy do you think Ronaldo is that he didn't actually go over there? Because he's been like the thorn in Ronaldo's like legacy for forever. And now that he's in the MLS, Ronaldo can be like, it's just me, kind of.
I can do it. And then he's going to be like, I'm going to MLS.
This is ridiculous.
I'm going to Austin FC, guys.
The PGA and what is it? Live Unity. Like, what was the point of all this?
So all PGA. Let's just oust all the liars and cheats from the PGA who run the PGA. I get you don't have the money to give the players the money because you've been cooking the books and stealing money for too long. The fact that dude makes like $14 million a year and there's so many golfers that make less, but you told all of them that they're disparaging the names of the families. They're victims of 9/11. You use that, and months later, not years, months later, you take the money. You take the money months later. You don't even wait a full calendar year before you backtrack on everything said. They all need to be ousted. Like, let some of these players come in and take over. It's insane. It's terrible. And whether you want to believe in the Saudi, I don't care about. Like, I'm not being political. If the Saudis did this,
sure.
But you can't evoke fear and patriotism and everything else in your players. And if you go there, you might as well have signed a deal with the devil.
Right.
And then months later, sign that same deal. You cannot do that. That is what annoys me.
I love old white people.
The very bottom shelf. The bottom is, that's the bar rag. You swipe a bar and you pour that into a shot glass, and you're like, we sprayed for bugs earlier today. That's what that is.
I like that. Beautiful. All right, A&M claims first Texas game will be at College Station.
This is the most fun story of the week. And it's been a story for a little bit, but Bill Lucci, who's a reporter for Texas, for A&M, who is a very inside guy for Texas A&M, was on Paul Feinbaum's show, and he started off the interview basically like, hey, guys, we all know it's going to be at Texas A&M. We all know this is going to happen. And Paul Feinbaum was like, tell me again. Why we all know that? for us who forgot, is what he says. He goes, remind us who forgot why that is. Because it's never been said. And then you just see him start to sweat and have to backtrack and try to put it because he thought he had two SEC buddies and they were going to hate on the Big 12 guys. And Paul Feinbaum was like, no. Like, you guys look like idiots in this. It was just hilarious. Look, I don't really care. The only reason we care that we like it to be played here is out of spite.
For sure.
Pettiness that you said you have to have it. But we thought of a better plan. The better plan, we are going to gift them the first game. If we chose it, we decided you get the first game. We're giving it to you, Aggies. We decided you didn't. This isn't your own one. This is nothing. We gave it to you because of out of the kindness of our hearts as Longhorns. You get it, and just watch them squirm in their seats. I love it.
Zion announces baby and gets called out.
First of all, one of the best trendings on Twitter I've ever seen. Alleged what? Google that yourself. Yeah. Look that up on Twitter, legend what, and why that was trending. But Zion Williamson, basically, his girl posted a gender reveal. He did not apparently post this on his social media. It was posted on hers. And two would have come out. Uh-huh. One of them with receipts to say that he's done all these awful things and not kept his promises, and he's a dirty, no good person, and it's hilarious. It's really hilarious.
It's a great thread.
It's hilarious for a guy that if you're a Pelicans fan, you're just like, come on, why is the news always bad with him? He's played 114 games in 4 years. He has apparently slept. He slept with way more than 114 women. It is insane. And this is the best part: is he is now at home trying to say it was only them two, knowing full well that tomorrow morning he may have 10 or 12 more. Seriously? He knows this, but he still has to be like, look, it was 2 crazy nights, and they're crazy, and those messages that's not what I said. I was trying to get her as, I needed a publicist, and I...
He thought, but also, give me your phone, and don't ever get back on Twitter or any social media.
Let's see one more before we go to break.
All right, Nunez versus Aldana this weekend.
I think it's going to be a good fight. What do you got for me on this one?
I think Aldana upsets. I think like this Mexican trend is just going to keep rising. I love it. I'm a fan.
You're a fan?
Yes.
Look, I'd love an upset.
Yeah.
That'd be fun to watch this weekend. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hit some Insinserious news here on Insinserious. 1049, 1019, AM 1260. Streaming live on the Horn app or hornfm.com. Back in Insinserious here on the Horn. Time for some Insinserious news. Anthony, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Our first story, 3 men were swept out to sea on a giant inflatable duck.
That's a bummer.
They were hanging out on a giant inflatable duck, I guess drinking, having a good time, not realizing that they should be very worried. And I guess at some point it got too far away, and they were too far away to yell anymore. Like by the time they realized it, they got over 650 feet away from the shore. They're very far away from the shore to be on a raft.
Yes.
And then you're also like still going out. Apparently they had some kayakers and other people that came out there and we're able to go all the way out there and get them and pull them back into shore.
So tough.
But very embarrassing for sure. Have you ever had to be rescued embarrassingly?
Yeah, I got locked in a bathroom in Rome once when I was a kid. They told me not to close the door, and I closed the door. And then for hours, it was our first night there. Spent just trying to get the dumb kid out of the bathroom.
Yeah, I feel like there's been multiple times where I almost was, and I've consciously made a decision. I may die,
but
no one will know. No one will know about this. I may die. I don't remember the situations, but I know I've had that feeling in my life of like, this just has to happen. Like, I have to jump out of this tree or something like that, where you're like, I don't know how this is going to end, but I cannot suffice to be like, oh, I'm too wimpy to do it. I just have to do it.
I just thought of one real quick. Cherish and I, in a hotel, we had a few cocktails, whatever, and we went to go try to find the pool, and we went into the stairs.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get out of the stairs because like you had to have a key or something.
Yeah.
And so for like an hour and a half, we were just, and at one point we literally sat on the stairs and we're just like, this is where we die. Like, this is it.
Yeah. No, I feel like I've done that. Unusual room service requests have been put out. Some of the unusual requests: diet water, melted ice cream, blowfish, cockle popcorns, an omelet without egg whites, rice bowl for a dog, bison meat, boiled bottled water. Do you have any service requests you'd ask for in a fancy hotel?
I thought you said diet water blowfish in this, and I was like, couldn't wait to hear what that meant. But yeah, give me some of that adrenochrome that all these rich white people are getting. You never heard of adrenochrome?
Is that? I do not know what adrenochrome is.
It's from like the baby things. I don't know.
That's how poor I am. I don't even know what that is. And finally, party goers fish a sinking plane out of the water in Ontario. Apparently, this is a bachelor party. One of the guys flies into the bachelor party on this plane. They get off, start drinking, don't realize the plane is now taking on water and sinking. It was not buoyant enough. They then pull it out of the water themselves. He calls a mechanic. They keep drinking, have a good weekend. He flies the plane out.
Nice.
So impressive work from him.
Very impressive.
Have you ever been the odds to get home?
Way too many.
This says those nights where we all had.
Yeah, you're just like, oh. That was a close one.
Yeah, and I feel like there's been times where it's like my car won't start, and you're just sitting in the head, and you're like, one last shot before I have to call a tow truck, and you start it, and you're just like, vroom, and you're like, woo, we're going home. We got to get out of here. We'll be back next week with more great Insinserious content. Thanks for everybody watching us on YouTube. Follow us on all our social medias, and we'll see you next week. Until then, keep your underwear clean. I remember the catchphrase. See you next week. Peace.